Hello again. My name is Brian. I'm the Director of Communications for Pearson College, and today I'm lucky enough to be talking to Latif Nasser. Now, he is year 29, and Latif is talking to us from Southern California right now, where you're still in a bit of a COVID lockdown. I think we're all aware of that in various parts of the world. So I really appreciate you coming on with us. We'll try not to take up too much of your time, but I wanted to
Thanks for
talk
having
to you
me.
because, well, you're very welcome. Well, let's start it off like this. Now, I know how busy you are between parental duties and creating and hosting one of the most popular podcast radio programs around, and dipping into, let's say, a well-received series of science-based Netflix documentaries. Goodness knows what else. So appreciate the time that you're giving us. But tell us about your life right now. Now, I believe you have two preschoolers in your house, and what is that like in the time of COVID?
Yeah, I have I have a 3.5-year-old and a what is it now, 5-month-year-old and 5-month-old. And they are great. They are both of them take a tremendous amount of energy. It's like a lot of waking up in the middle of the night and a lot of like finding something to do, and then 15 minutes later finding something else to do, and then 15 minutes later finding something else to do. But it's really yeah, it's a lot of work, and we're thankful we've kind of, it's been spotty, but we now have childcare, which is pretty good, and we're really lucky to have it. But yeah, it's mostly been like my wife and I both are kind of workaholics, and so like trying to find time for each of us to yeah, to spend time and be there for our kids in the way we want to, but then also to like make the stuff that we really want to make. My wife is a TV writer, and so she also has a very sort of demanding job, and it's just like finding where it's like a tag team. It's like a very elaborate tag team.
So how do two workaholics juggle those parental responsibilities and all of the other projects that you alone are involved in, much less you and your spouse?
Yeah, well, we're both lucky in that we both, everything we do, like all these things, even though usually like a TV show or whatever, I'm the face of it, or I'm the voice on the radio show, like and for her, working on TV shows, like they're all team sports. We are so lucky to work with like such great people. And then basically between that, like having a wonderful supportive team, who of course understands sort of like pandemic parenting and what that requires, and then also to like we kind of micromanage our days, and we do these like handoffs where it's like, okay, I'm gonna take this chunk over here, you're gonna take this chunk over here, and you take both for this, and now go for a walk, and then you go set while you're doing breakfast, and then we do and it's just like an elaborate an elaborate ballet. But we're very, very fortunate, both to be employed, to have teams of people that work with us that are really really helpful, and we just, we're barely leaving the house, so I guess that's maybe keeping us healthy too.
That's the thing about COVID. It's I think for a lot of us, it's made us realize just how lucky we are to
Yeah,
be in the fortunate positions that we are in.
yeah, no
Uh,
kidding.
and I kind of hope that that sense, goes beyond the COVID, the pandemic period too, so that we're a little more conscious of that.
Yeah,
But let's go back to the halcyon days along Pedder Bay, and
sure.
tell me about how in the world did you find yourself at Pearson to begin with, and did Pearson help you find yourself?
Yeah, I certainly did. I mean, God, that's it really is easy to go back there in my mind, because it was such a like a rich, vivid, um beautiful experience. I grew up in the suburbs of Toronto, in Mississauga, and I just went to my kind of ordinary high school down the street from my house, public high school. There was a kid at my mosque who had gone to Pearson a few years ahead of me. We were in the like Ismaili Muslim youth choir together and all these kinds of things. And I had heard from him all these great stories about Pearson and what this place was. And I, just hearing from him, learning more about it myself, I like just desperately wanted to go to this place. It sounded amazing. It sounded like a little educational Shangri-La. Yeah, I kind of like made a decision for myself. Like, I'm going here. I don't care what it takes. I am going here. And I remember applying and I got an interview and I went to the interview and I was so excited. And then I didn't get in. I got waitlisted. And I remember I was like kind of devastated because I wanted to go so bad. And it's somehow, if you just get rejected, that's one thing. If you get in, that's one thing. But like to be sort of on the edge. And so what I did is that that's the summer before I was sort of still on the wait list. I went to PSYL, the summer program, and when I was there, I like just regularly I would go to the director's office and I would just knock on his door and I'd be like, "Hey, hi, I'm on the wait list. Do you have any extra spots?" And I think I did that a few times. And then one time I remember I knocked and he answered, and then maybe he called me to his office. I forget. And then he told me that someone somewhere, their visa something happened with their visa or something. And then he was like, "And now you have a spot. So you have to, like, will you be able to fly home and then fly back really quick?" And I just remember being dizzy. I remember like leaving his office and I sat on a rock and I just had to I was just so dizzy because this thing I wanted so bad, I finally got it. But yeah, that's how I kind of found myself at Pearson, like just barely by the skin of my teeth, and I was so happy and lucky to be there. It was such a kind of, I think it really, and maybe this is true for a lot of people, but for me, like leaving home, it was this thing where I could sort of be myself. Like I could say, okay, what do I actually care about? Who am I actually? Like if you separate my family and my upbringing and my mosque and my school and my all this stuff, like if I sort of pluck myself out of that, and put myself into this new environment where I could be anything, I could do anything, I could talk to anyone, it felt like, and like, who am I? And so that was like a really, I think, a pivotal time in my life, and meeting so many brilliant, interesting people from so many different fields, and everybody kind of sort of taking you seriously in a way. It was such a kind of a monumental moment in my life where, where all of a sudden I wanted to be worthy of that spot that I just barely gotten. And it was I remember just some of the teachers there. Like I've gone on to go to, some of the biggest, fanciest, wealthiest schools on planet Earth. And I still think the sort of caliber of teaching that I got at Pearson was right up there, if not better than the rest of them. It was really like, I felt like it was, I learned so much, and it sort of helped awaken me to be so much more interested in so many other things than I ever expected.
So many alumni I talk to sort of give a similar sort of story in different words. It allowed me to find myself as an individual, not as part of a family unit, as part of a culture or something like that. And then I also always put people I talk to on the spot, and I say, is there someone who made a bit of an outsized impression on you when you were here at Pearson?
Oh, there's so many. Like there's so many students and teachers there, even administrators who really made a big dent on me. Like one, just because I've talked to her recently, Laura, teaching me environmental systems. I mean, you can literally see the effect of that in my Netflix show. I feel like the way that like I had never heard about an environmental system before, or thought about sort of I don't know, the ways that species might be related to one another, or like, and she was just showing us, she like, just the idea of like walking out and being like, look, this area here that you've never even thought about, this is called the intertidal zone, and there's all kinds of interesting things going on right here. It doesn't look like it, but there's a lot of really interesting things going on right here. And sort of that feeling, that was so wonderful. I feel like in a similar way, Theo, the English teacher, oh my God, I learned so much from him. It's so funny. He used to do these little, he would do these little lessons, his sexy little grammar snacks and his sexy little lingo snacks. And he would do these. And I'm teaching, my kid is 3 years old. I'm already teaching him all this stuff that Theo taught me. Yeah, there are just so many people. So it's hard to single out a few because I just, and I feel, it's so long ago now, but it's so vivid still. Like I still remember all of these people, and I guess because that moment in your life is so, it's such a special moment where everything, every impression, it's deep. Yeah. And it lasts. Yeah.
I know Laura is one of the most modest people that I know. but she was absolutely delighted when you were a guest in her class a couple of months ago for marine science. And it was great because I had a chance to sit in on that and lurk in that. And you were able to sort of tell your story. And it's so completely non-linear from Pearson to where you are now.
Yeah.
I'm not going to make it go through all of the highlights or anything, but maybe give us a few highlights of where you've been along the way.
Sure. So I left Pearson, and yeah, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was kind of just excited. I was interested to learn a lot more, but so I went to Dartmouth College. And one of the few things I did know I wanted to do, and that's actually thanks to someone else at Pearson, Libby was wonderful, the theater teacher. And so theater was a thing that I sort of fell into and fell in love with, and playwriting in particular when I was at Dartmouth. And so that was a thing I just really loved. I loved stories. I love telling stories. I love thinking about stories. I love puzzling them out. I love like imagining them from different perspectives. I love writing dialogue, just all these kinds of things that I had started at Pearson and I kind of kept doing when I was in as an undergrad. I wanted to go to playwriting graduate school after my undergrad, but I didn't get in. In fact, I think I might have even got waitlisted at one of those places as well. I'm king of the wait list. But I didn't get into the kind of the graduate schools I wanted to go to. And it was 2008 and the economy was really bad and I didn't know what to do. And so there was a professor of mine, a wonderful guy at Dartmouth, named Richard Kramer. And he was like, why don't you just go do the program that I did? And this was a history of science PhD program at Harvard. And I didn't really know that much about the history of science, except from what I had learned from him, because I worked for him as a research assistant. And but I was like, okay, I'm not really doing anything else. And so I started to do that. And it was a really exciting thing for me, history, because I'd always loved science, like the kinds of things I had learned from Laura and other people. Like science had always appealed to me, but not the kind of lab work part of it, and not the. But then all of a sudden,
brushing off of the bones and
the brushing off the bones, exactly, yeah, that kind of thing. Like it just felt like kind of too meticulous for me. Like my mind kind of would flit around. And for me then to be able to say, oh, there's like a history to science. That's like, I can talk about science, but like do it in a story form, like that appealed to me. And so I fell into this PhD program. I told myself every year, it was a 6-year PhD program. Every one of those years, I thought I was going to drop out at the end of the year. And I kept doing it. I was like, okay, one more year. And I kept doing that. And I didn't intend to finish the degree. And then I kind of did, sort of despite myself. But and then kind of so that was like, I was in theater, and then I took this left-hand turn into the history of science, like just because happenstancically I didn't know where else to go. So I went to grad school, and they remarkably mercifully they took me. And then after that, I kind of knew I didn't really want to be an academic necessarily. Although I did like teaching, and I did like kind of a lot of the research kind of stuff that I was doing. And then at the same time, I remember kind of having stories, and kind of, now that I had this access to this kind of repository of information of all these different cool stories in the history of science, I thought, well, hey, I should do something with these, and what could I do with these? And I there was a podcast that I had listened to, and this was at a time when podcasts were really, really, not nearly as big as they are now. And so I just kind of called them up, and I started pitching them stories. And I also got connected through a professor of mine in grad school to the Boston Globe. And so I was like, oh, okay, I guess I could sort of, even though I don't have any training in it, I could try to be a journalist and kind of work my way into that. And so that's kind of how I, while I was in grad school, I started sort of doing that on the side, just as a kind of like, oh, okay, let's try this. Why not?
I like this. I'm good at it.
Yeah. Or why not? I mean, maybe, let's see how it feels. And I did it a few times, and I really enjoyed it. And then I kind of kept doing that. And then that became clearer to me that this was this was the thing that I ought to be doing. And this was the thing that I, bringing these kind of different perspectives that I had, one being from theater and the other being from history and the history of science, like those two sensibilities, they worked really well in a journalism space. And that kind of both of those sensibilities, they weren't, like, all the other journalists around me necessarily weren't thinking in those terms. And so that was great. Like I really was able to kind of, to sort of make a living and carve out, maybe hopefully a more unusual POV than a lot of other journalists kind of offer. And for that, I've been able to, get a lot of work, which I'm really, really proud about.
But that's it. So storytelling and this unrelenting curiosity that you have are two qualities that make sense, but what is it that drives you to sort of share what you learn with people?
I mean, it's
through the projects you take on.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it's not so dissimilar from like, walking along the intertidal zone of Pedder Bay and finding, some shiny abalone shell or something and being like, hey, look at this cool thing I found. Right. And to me, I think that's the feeling. Like, it's just, wow, look at this. Like, this is a beautiful thing. And it's an interesting thing. And why does it look like this? Why does it look like this? And like, here, come look at this with me and think about it with me. And I think it's the same feeling. It's the same feeling at any time you find a story that you're like, I never heard of that. How is it possible that I've been alive as long as I've been alive and I still have never seen or heard of or thought of this thing before? And that's the thing. And then it's not like, I think I don't think of myself as a kind of, I don't know. I'm not like peddling stories in a way. I'm like, it's like, oh my God, I have this thing. It's infectious. Like, you need to just show people. You want to share it because it's like, I can't even believe this. Can you believe this? Like that kind of thing.
I think I read in one of your quotes, surprise, delight, and wonder. That's kind of what drives you. And
yeah.
It sounds like it drove you both ultimately to the RadioLab podcast and also to the Netflix Connected series. So maybe let's go back. Let's go in reverse direction and tell us a little bit about the Connected series.
Sure. So I at that moment when I started that, I was already kind of working at RadioLab doing radio journalism as I've been doing it, and then I got approached by this production company called 0.0, who are terrific people, but they just emailed me cold, and they're the folks who did, they've done so many things, like but the thing they're best known for is for doing all of the Anthony Bourdain TV shows.
Oh, yes.
And which I was a big fan, and of which actually has a kind of very much a kind of Pearson spirit to them. I feel like
it's a little bit of a similar vibe to what you're doing as well. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and this feeling like that. Oh, this is this is a big planet, but actually it's a really small planet. And actually we have a lot more in common, that feeling where it's like, oh, the world is, I don't know, just that feeling of like being at Pearson College, I think. I don't know. But they approached me and they said, hey, we want to kind of reinvent the science show. We want to do a new kind of science show, the same way, Bourdain made a new kind of food show. And would you want to do that with us? And I said, sure. I mean, it was kind of a like nothing I'd thought about doing myself, but it seemed like I was like, yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. And also just the idea of kind of making something new, like trying a new form and making, to me, I think so much of my job as a journalist has been kind of learning out loud, like trying new things and sort of failing at them and sort of succeeding at them, but like kind of realizing sort of in real time, oh, this is how this works. And kind of just being up for that, like, cause it's yeah. And so that's what this was. Like, I was like, okay, let me try TV. I never tried TV. Why not? Let's try TV. And so I was really fortunate that they gave me a lot of freedom. They gave me a lot of encouragement. And they sort of like, we together then went to Netflix and I mean, we pitched that show so many times, so many places.
And they put you on a wait list, right? Yeah.
Yeah, right. Well, on not just that show, we had so many different kind of ideas that we were pitching in a lot of different places, and people would just look at us like we were crazy. And then finally, we went to Netflix, and I think it was our second time pitching there, and then they were like, okay, let's do it, and we were so excited, sort of, to be able to try it out, and so I was very lucky to be able to make that. And it's funny, like the notes that we would get from Netflix when we would pitch, they're very sharp people over there, and they would look at what we pitched and they said, can you make it more international? Can you make this even more ambitious somehow? And I was like, oh, okay, I'll take that note. Let me try that.
So
I'll try.
This is how you ended up in the Sahara Desert then.
Right, exactly. Yeah. No, and that one too, like it's no joke how much, like, it, in doing a show like that, you realize, oh, this is why not a lot of people do this kind of thing. For example, like when we landed in Chad, there's a lot of like, and to me, I was dumb enough to think that, when you see when you see someone like a TV host walking through the desert alone, that they're actually walking through the desert alone. No, but of course they have, camera people and producers and directors and a doctor and chefs and porters and soldiers and like
security.
There's a huge caravan that we had to travel with to even do those. And security people, like when we landed, I remember. When we landed, we had to get this like briefing right after we landed, and the security guy was like, okay, you guys landed, and it's like, I forget what he said. It was something like, 12 miles that way is Al-Shabaab, and they know you're here. Like they saw when you came at the airport, and like, you were this fancy Netflix documentary crew, and they're paying attention. Like they know that you're here, and that was terrifying. Like it was like, oh wow, like this is okay. I guess we gotta, like be extremely careful, because if I was just traveling there, no one would care, but like it's because I'm part of this like Netflix crew with all this fancy equipment and stuff. But yeah, it took a lot of work for this production to sort of pull the whole thing off, and not to mention that we were filming in all kinds of different countries and all over the world and flying here and there. But yeah, I was really lucky that, that this production company and that Netflix sort of, they trusted me and my ideas, my real dumb ideas often, and my punny, ideas, like enough to really put that amount of, like money and effort and time and thought behind them to really make them into a TV show.
But happily what comes through is your innate delight at learning these things and understanding these connections about, well, I just say I've seen 3 of the 6 episodes myself, and going fishing in the Sahara is just absolutely wonderful. Honestly. Anyway, enough of being the fanboy stuff. Tell me a little bit about RadioLab. And I know that RadioLab has been around for quite a while as a podcast and as a radio
Yeah.
program. And I don't know how long you've been there, but I think you started out as a researcher and now you've worked
Yeah.
your co-host chair.
Yeah, I've been there probably on staff probably about 5 years or 6 years, something like that, maybe. And then as a sort of freelance contributor or something like in total, I've probably been there about 10 years. But it's basically like a radio documentary show where we every week or 2 weeks or so we kind of come out with like an original documentary, like a kind of a 1 hour radio documentary, but we do so in a way that is very much kind of we try to be very first person and immersive and kind of highlighting surprise, highlighting the very kind of big questions. There's stories with questions in them. That's the kind of big thing about RadioLab, is that every story has hidden in it every story that we tell has hidden in it a question, a thing that you're not supposed to know how to feel, something that's sort of complicated in a way that that isn't tidy, that somehow it's something that either it never occurred to you, or that that's the hope, at least, is that it's a way of kind of looking at the world. It'll take something that you've seen a million times and it'll make you see it in a whole new way. And that's kind of the hope of the show, is that it's like it'll raise some sort of question, or it'll raise some sort of new way of seeing that you hadn't that you didn't have before, that was not obvious, hopefully.
What I think a lot of people like about it, though, is that it raises the question. It sort of peeks at the big question behind it, but it doesn't necessarily give you the answers.
That's right. That's right.
You go away and you're still thinking about it. So
that's the hope. That's the hope, that it's like it leaves you with a kind of a snack to sort of chew on, in your brain, hopefully for forevermore,
Hopefully, just like being in Pearson for 2 years.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway, so you've taken care of podcasts, radio, broadcast, streaming television. Got any other big projects in the works that you'd like to share with us?
Oh, well, I've done. I have a few that I'm not supposed to talk about, but there is. I don't know. I feel like there is. I have I have a big long list of things I want to try and things I want to do. And for me, I think there's, you only live once, so you might as well try as many things as you possibly can. Obviously, while staying sane and healthy and safe, and having, taking care of kids and all these other responsibilities that are, that I feel like in pandemic times you like are just sort of staring you right in the face. But there are, I do have so many dreams and so many ideas, and I think to me the fun, I've heard it said about a different industry, but it's like I think for me this kind of work that I do, this sort of science journalism, like the saying is, it's like a pie eating contest where the prize is more pie. So if you do well, you just get to do more of it. So that's kind of what I'm doing at RadioLab. Hopefully on TV, we'll see what happens. And who knows, maybe in other mediums too. So we'll see what happens. I just like to do what I do, and if people let me keep doing it, I will keep doing it.
Well, we'll look forward to more to come then. That's great. Now, we're coming to the end of the time that we have here together, but I just wanted to ask you, as I said, you were a guest in Laura Verheeg's marine science class. I believe you may be coming back for another class.
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
And so it must be pretty interesting and pretty rewarding for you to connect with students, I guess, who are literally sitting in the same classroom, knowing Pearson, perhaps sitting on the same chairs. that you did 15, 16 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. It's great. It's also so energizing in a way. Like it's fun because it makes you um yeah, it sort of teleports me back in that way, but it also, I mean, it's so exciting because you see such, I mean, hearing the questions and thoughts and ideas of such promising young people who have like it's the same sort of thrill that I got the first time I went to Pearson. You know what I mean? You're meeting people who are so have kind of totally different life experiences than you, and to just be able to share that kind of yeah, that energy and that sort of excitement. And yeah, for me it's like it's a nice way to spur you on to thinking new thoughts. It's like talking to new people, and yeah, and just kind of teleporting and remembering, oh yeah, that was this or that or the other thing would never have been obvious to me. Like, how would I have known that? And yeah, I think it's really, for me, I even when I was in grad school, like I love teaching. I love like being part of that learning process, and I do it in a different way now than I did in grad school, as a teacher and as a student. But still, I think I just love that. I love that act. I think it's a kind of a radical and also a beautiful act, where they're like two people in a room together, or in a virtual room now, I guess, but and kind of teaching something and learning something. There's something so sort of profound and affirming about that. And I think Pearson is kind of the yeah, I don't know, it will always have a soft spot in my heart for this, doing that in this place.
It's a nice way to end it off then. Thank you. Anything else you want to add to it, or
No, I just
exhausted you?
no, I just do feel so fondly towards Pearson. And I think that it's yeah, it's a place I really do think that um I think it's so important, a place to sort of fight for, and a place to kind of um yeah, I don't know. I don't have anything else to say. I just like it. I just like it so much. It's a wonderful place, and I hope it kind of can stay. It can sort of be true to itself for forevermore.